Welcome to Playfully Orange, our conversations on Thursdays. My guest today is Scott Evans. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, Scott, there are hundreds of thousands of students that you are the important person for because you give them access to the arts. But let's find out a little bit about you. You didn't grow up in Florida.
Correct. Correct. I
You're
grew up in New England, in a little town just south of Boston, and a town called Easton.
and were arts a big part of your growing up?
Absolutely. Fortunately, we had a school district that had lots of arts programs, so I had many opportunities to be involved in the arts. And then my whole family actually were artists. So both my parents were music educators, and my grandparents were musicians. They played in clubs, in little jazz clubs. My dad was in the Navy jazz band. So I have pretty much my whole family influenced my passion for arts and for music.
So you went to college to train to be a musician?
Yeah, I went to the University of Massachusetts to be a music educator, actually. So I entered college as a piano major with music education as my focus.
You didn't want to try to make it doing little gigs in jazz clubs?
No, I honestly always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I used to go to work with my parents every once in a while just to watch them be music teachers, and I as far as long as I can remember, fell in love with doing what they did and knew that was my goal. I knew, from as early as elementary school that I'm going to be a music teacher one day, and that's what I set out to do.
What was your first music teaching experience?
My first music teaching experience was actually right after I graduated. I landed in a short-term sub job right in the city of Boston, in a fairly rough area of Boston at a middle school, which already anyone that knows middle school students is already a challenge in itself. But then, couple that with the high poverty rate at the school that I was at, there was a lot of challenging issues, but I absolutely loved that job. It was incredibly rewarding, a great place to start my career off.
What was rewarding about it?
The kids were um, the kids were really wanting for someone to come in and just love on them and to respect them and give them opportunities. And once you got past the hard edge that they presented, the rewards were incredible, just as far as how they showed their respect and appreciation for what you were providing to them. And it was so, I've worked in many different schools, some very high income areas, and I still go back to this one as one of my favorites because the kids really were appreciative of what they were receiving from me as an educator, and how we could collaborate in the music classroom.
What was your first full-time music teaching gig?
Yeah, my first full-time music teaching gig was way up in a town in New Hampshire. It was right on the Canadian border. So the majority of the town either worked at the paper mill, or worked as border patrol on the Canadian American border. And I worked K-12 music. So I taught elementary school. I went up, then I would walk up to the high school in the snow and freezing cold weather, walk up to the high school, and teach chorus to high school kids. So I taught all ages.
Were those kids as responsive as the kids in the lower economic Boston?
Yeah, I think so, in a different way. Funny, I had had left that challenging school in this inner city where you have to maybe initially approach kids in a different way than you would in a very small rural town of New Hampshire. And I could sort of, as a new teacher, was still learning getting my chops set. And I went in gangbusters, like I was in this inner city school to these little kids, and, in a small town. So I definitely had to adjust how I related to them. It was just very different, but they still, in their own way, were very responsive and very appreciative of the collaboration that we could have in the music classroom.
Well, what caused you to look at Florida as a place to look for a job?
Yeah, I mean, there were lots of opportunities in Florida that weren't available in New England. I think, there's not the growth in the New England area at the time that you had down here in Orlando. And so people were in their jobs and they stayed in their jobs. So to find a job that was going to be your focus area and your passion was really tough. Most of the jobs up there, you were doing either all grade levels K-12, or you were servicing multiple schools and more of an itinerant teacher. And Orlando offered an opportunity for me to come down here and be a music educator at one school and service one population of students, where you could really invest in that school building and create a culture of love for music education. Not only that, but when I came down here, because again, in New England, no one built new schools. That was unheard of. I came down here and they said, "Hey, how would you like to also open a brand new school?" And as you know, I was only a third year teacher. To have the opportunity to build a program from scratch, open a brand new school with all new equipment, I thought, how do I give that up? What a great opportunity. So the opportunities down here were just definitely more robust than they were at home.
Well, you aren't being a full-time teacher anymore. You're an administrator, right? Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about what your role is with Orange County Public
Yeah.
Schools.
So my job now is to do more of the advocating at the district office level to make sure, one, that we have access for every single student in our district, which means we have to have arts at every school to make sure that that's equitable in how we deliver arts education, and then to also make sure that the funding is adequate to support those programs in all of the schools. So it's really more of an advocacy role than it is as a direct educator of students.
And you've been doing that for a number of years, so it must be okay.
Yeah, I love
And
it. Yeah,
you haven't,
this is
you're not yearning for the days of being in the classroom?
no, no, not at all. I think I had a great turn at teaching. I taught again at all grade levels through my career, ending my last teaching job was at Boone High School here in Orlando, which is a wonderful school and a wonderful place of people that have really grown up in Orlando. So there's lots of heritage there and lots of tradition. And jumped into administration and absolutely have loved it. I love the fact that I can impact so many kids in my role. So, I can exponentially impact access to arts education for students, different from just being in one school setting.
Is there a particular initiative or program or event that you can look to in this current role and say, that was really successful?
Yeah, I think probably my favorite thing that we've done, initiative that we've done, is we've really focused, like many folks have, we've focused on diversity and looking at our programs to see if they reflect our actual student body. And in some cases, we were seeing that they were not, that the programs, especially some of the honors programs and audition level programs, were not reflective of our community. There were a lot of kids that were in low socioeconomic settings that were not able to get into some of these honor groups or all state groups, those sort of things. And several reasons for that, one being financial. So we were able to come up with funding to completely pay for all county experience for all students, so that finances were no longer an issue. And then I think the biggest and most important to me is the private lesson program that we've now been doing for 3 years, which essentially we're paying for 30-minute private lessons every week for students that are in low socioeconomic settings that may be slightly behind their peers in other schools that have access to private lessons. So we're giving them a boost so that they have more opportunity to get into those honors ensembles and all-state ensembles, which in turn, those often lead to college scholarships and such. So we're really trying to boost the opportunities for those kids so that they can be a part, and so that we're really truly representing the students that are in our classrooms.
Nice. And as I mentioned, you have about 168,000 students in arts class of one kind or another.
Yes, sir.
We kind of talked about music, but you're over all the arts: dance,
Mhm.
visual arts, theater.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got amazing theater programs. If anyone wants to ever go to a show, let me know. There's incredible musicals at our middle schools and high schools. Our art programs are phenomenal. You can, if you were recently at the Winter Park Sidewalk Art Festival, you saw tents full of incredible student artwork. And what I love about our art programs, all of our arts programs, but the visual art programs in particular, is you can really see the mood of our students in the artwork they do. So, during the pandemic, we saw very dark, solemn artwork coming out of our kids. So that artwork we were collecting really did reflect the experiences they were having of not being in school, not being able to be social, not seeing their friends, to now where we're really starting to see that change. If you look at the artwork, the stories they're telling through their art are definitely more positive. So we're, excited to see that. And that's what I love about the arts, is they really sort of take the temperature of our schools in how they present their art and how they use their voice through the arts.
Well, Scott, you have done a lot. I know we've seen the needle moving in our public schools, and we appreciate you for that. Thank you for joining me today for this short conversation,
Thank you.
and good to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Terry.
And thank you all for watching this. Again, Thursday afternoons, we go live with Playfully Orange. I also do a Diverse Orange on Tuesday afternoons, talking about diversity in Central Florida. Have a great weekend, everyone.